Welcome to Client-Side Web Development, Lesson 26, using third-party JavaScript libraries and frameworks. So today we're going to be talking about how to use third-party libraries and frameworks. Why you might use third-party libraries and frameworks, the differences between libraries and frameworks, how and when you might want to use Angular, jQuery, React, or other third-party libraries, how to download and use a popular third-party JavaScript library in your applications, and the benefits of JavaScript frameworks. So let's move on. Third-party JavaScript libraries, they take some of the headaches of writing cross-browser JavaScript because they already take a lot of that into consideration. Why invent code when someone else has already written? So you can just use their functionality rather than write your stuff from scratch. Solve some really advanced problems that you don't have to solve yourself. And using a third-party library is as easy as downloading a file to your server and adding a script tag to your HTML. Make sure I fix that. Your HTML there. All right, so today we're going to actually use jQuery. And again, you can go to jQuery.com. This is a much older third-party library, but it's been used a lot. It's used a lot in a lot of websites. It was introduced back in 2006, but it makes cross-browsing browser coding easy and productive. So if we go to jQuery.com, just to show you, this is the site, and to go ahead and download it, you just click on that and it'll go ahead and download it. Okay, another third-party library is prototypejs.org. Simplifies working with the DOM objects, deals with data and forms much easier, and is good for remote scripting. So doing like AJAX calls, so it's calling APIs through your JavaScript. Again, makes it easy for that. Scriptaculous is another one. It includes impressive effects in your pages by using this library and a few lines of code, so you don't have to, a lot of that stuff that we were doing with transitions and things like that, it really simplifies that. Simplifies drag and drop, rearranging a list of items, includes a number of combination effects, and for example, it has a nice little fade effect that you can include in your website. And then a couple other ones, if you want to look into them, they're Dojo and MooTools is another two that are out there. So before we go to frameworks, let me demonstrate our jQuery example. So in order to get jQuery to work, you have to download the jQuery JS file and include it inside of your site. So what I've done in our site, so here's my lesson 26 site. So what I did is I create a separate libraries folder, and in this library folder is where I'm going to put my jQuery library, and I create a separate folder because I want to keep it separate from my JavaScript that I'm using, because we still need to use JavaScript to call these jQuery routines, functions, but I want to keep those two in separate directories. But in my HTML page, I still need to load the jQuery library 3.71, as well as my own jQuery example. This is my code here. So that's basically how you include a third-party library. Is just add the source and the script tag. Again, you want to do it toward the bottom for that reason. Now, what did I do in here? Couple things. One thing about it is, the nice thing about jQuery is you don't have to do the onload. Once you load this example, these dollar functions automatically fire which is kind of nice. So in a way that kind of makes it easy. So what happens is you can, all your jQuery, you can put in this one function here, and this will all get kicked off. And also it creates these event handlers. So this is how you do an event handler. Instead of add event listener like we did with the base JavaScript, here for jQuery, we just call this .on, and we're calling it on the, it looks for this element with the idea of get data. So if I look at this get data here, basically what it's doing is adding the on-click handler for this button, this get data button. So what does this do? Here we're using the Ajax functionality to call. There's a Star Wars API that lets you pull information about Star Wars for a variety of things. So what we're doing is we're going to use this API. I'm going to call this API. It's going to bring back some JSON. The actual data is stored in this results property on the JSON that's returned. And then what we do is we just generate the output, and then this is almost like doing an inner HTML, and then it basically does an inner HTML on the response ID. So if we look at this div, this is where that response prints out on this div over here. Okay, so let's show you an example just to see what this does. So here we have our jQuery. We have a whole bunch of stuff here. So now if I want to click get data, what happens is it made the API call, and then it pulled all of these Star Wars characters, the names of the characters, or the top 10 names of the characters, and I print those out. Again, that's all happening using jQuery, using this, basically it's doing an API call to the Star Wars API. So if you want to know more about the Star Wars API, you would just go here, Star Wars API, click on here. Again, it gives you examples. There's documentation available too if you want to look up all the different resources they have. They have a people resource. They have, let's see, films, all the Star Wars films, etc. So there's a lot there that you can explore if you're really interested in there. All right, so that shows that example of jQuery. The last thing we're going to look at are JavaScript frameworks. They're different than libraries because frameworks are larger than libraries. They're more complicated and impose architectural patterns on your application. One of those patterns is the MVC, or Model View Controller, where the model is the data model. The view is basically your web page. And the last thing is controller. The controller coordinates between the view and the model. Some examples out there is Angular.io is one example of a JavaScript framework, and Backbone.js is the example of another framework. Now we mention it for you to kind of explore this on your own. We don't, this course, we don't use any of these because we try to do everything using base JavaScript so that you understand how the base JavaScript works rather than learning a framework. Because the thing is once you learn how to do it in base JavaScript, learning a framework is pretty much just reading documentation, and you almost already know how the framework wrote it, so it will make you better at troubleshooting and debugging any issues that you might find in that framework. The other thing that I did in here is, I did the on-click in the jQuery, and it changes the CSS header to blue. So that was this piece. I forgot to demo it. So what's going to happen is this is going to turn blue. Right now, as you see, the font color is black. If I click on it, now the font color is blue. And that's what this piece does. So basically, it adds an event listener onto that target div. So that div has an ID of target. If you look over here, here's the ID of target. And we add the click event handler to it so that when you click on it, it changes the header CSS color blue. So if you look at our header here, and you're going to look at these selectors in jQuery. So one of the selectors was for the H2 element. Right here we only have one H2 element in the entire document, so that's this. So this sets it to header. So this is where I'm saying, hey, this H2 that I selected, I want to change the color of that H2 font to blue. And this is how I get the target font. I say, hey, I want to select the element with an ID of target. That's how I got that target there. And then that allowed me to set that target. Well, actually, I never actually ended up using the target, but I could have used it somewhere if I wanted to. All right. So I think that ends our lesson for today. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, we will see you later.